Hey, everybody, this was a little bit impromptu, not expected. Mary Magdalene's here and American Beijing and Club Ad and everybody else. This news just broke about 3 hours ago, and I immediately started crunching numbers, and they are insane. I'm going to try and assess a whole bunch of questions that I know are coming up. This is probably the craziest thing that's happened, and it's all about MicroStrategy and how they have filed a request to increase their number of shares to over a crazy number, which we'll get into in a second. And we'll try to get to the bottom of what this all means for MicroStrategy, for Bitcoin price. Can Michael Saylor pull it off? Is it crazy? Should we dump the stock or should we hold it? This is literally what I've lived my life for. This is game theory on steroids, GTOS. It's bonkers. We're going to break it down and what it all means. It's just once in a life you will ever see something like this. Thank you all for joining. Let's go. This is what called 31x down. And that's not like doubling down on a strategy. When the 42 billion came out, our heads melted. This is way bigger than that. This is 31 times bigger than that, okay? It's how crazy this is. Adam Q, let's go. And of course, I'm just a guy on the internet. Not financial advice, but I am the first guy ever to make YouTube videos on MicroStrategy and trading it too. So this is all about MicroStrategy's bold Bitcoin strategy. And they've been bold since day one. So they go bold, then they go real bold, and then they go extra bold. Now they're hyper bold. So let's see. And this video, I warn you, it's rough and ready. I had a vision of building out a very sophisticated Monte Carlo share price model. It got too complicated. I ran out of time, but I wanted to be first on this issue. Because if you're not first, you're last. Shout out to Talladega Nights. Now, what we're going to talk about today is talk about the strategy, the proposed share increase, the unprecedented capital market move and what it means. We'll talk about game theory, how that plays in here. Will people follow? Impact on Bitcoin purchases, impact on Bitcoin price, finite supply, some crazy numbers too, and predicting where we all go. And then I will simulate outcomes. Okay, it's going to be fun. Now, what's kind of embarrassing is I did put together a very detailed financial simulation a few weeks ago, which is already completely out of date. This is a few weeks back where I had my expected bear and bull case scenario for the number of Bitcoin that Michael Saylor would be able to buy out to the year 2034, 2035, etc. And literally, if you look at some of these numbers, I only got to like 568,000 Bitcoin. And embarrassing to say, they are literally nearly at 500,000 already, which is crazy. Anyway, let's move on. There's a lot more to this. And by the way, shout out to all the people that jumped into MicroStrategy late. You know, the people that weren't in at $9 or $19 or whatever, but that bought $450, $500, whatever. They're hurting right now and they don't know what to do. But that's why I always stress, get in early. Identify these things early because they can be game-changing. But let's talk about the strategy, what they're actually going to do. First of all, they filed what's called a preliminary notice with the SEC to convene a shareholder vote to basically increase the authorized shares from 330 million to 10.3 billion. That's an increase of 31.3x. That's why it's called a 31.3x down. Not a double down, not a 2x down. 31.3x down. And I just had to crunch some numbers. And we're going to get into it as well. It's crazy. And it's very late. I've been up since like 5 a.m. DCA this morning. It's been a long day. So excuse me for any mispronunciations. Wonder Twin, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining too. Thank you to American Beijing in the chat for keeping us all safe. First of all, fixed Bitcoin supply. Never before have we had a fixed asset. And not only people always talk about 21 million Bitcoins, that's BS. 5 million are lost. I proved it, including Satoshi's wallet, by the way. 4 million lost, 1.1 from him. Call it 5.1 million. This finite supply cannot, no matter what the price does, no matter what the demand does, it cannot be increased. This is the cornerstone of the game theory, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Also, the strategy for Saylor, increase shares, again, from 330 to 10.3, 31.3 increase. I have to express that again because it's so profound. And this could facilitate larger Bitcoin purchases, which will have a huge impact on the market and dynamics. But there's a couple of things as well that we need to stress, okay? The numbers are nuts. Let me give you a quick cut at the numbers on this little table. Again, it's crude. Assuming the price of Bitcoin now is 95,000, give or take $1,000, who cares? Initial shares 330. They're going to increase it to 10.3 billion. That is the number of new shares of 9.97 billion new shares. If you assume the stock price stays at 336, they could raise $3.35 trillion. All right? 3.35 trillion. The numbers are insane. Again, assuming the price, their share price stays the same, of course. But if they were to spend 3.35 trillion at Bitcoin price of 95,000, they'd be able to buy 35.26 million Bitcoin. Spoiler, there's only 15 million and most of them are not for sale, okay? So it's going to be a lot of money chasing very few assets. I reckon at most, you could maybe pull 1 million off the exchanges, maybe 300,000 off OTC, that's 1.3 million. And as you go up in price, people will take their lifestyle chips, they'll buy their yacht, they'll buy their Porsche, they'll buy their Cybertruck or Ranch or whatever else. That's going to happen. But will it be enough to satisfy this appetite? That's the question. Let's get into some of the numbers too. And then people are freaked out. 10.3 billion shares. That's way too much. Well, shout out to Jim Jam. I've seen so many people crying about dilution with MicroStrategy proposal. Maybe I'm an idiot, but it's not all that concerning since Apple has 15 billion shares, Amazon 10.2. 10.2, by the way. It rhymes with 10.3. It's the same, almost. And NVIDIA, 24.5 billion shares, Microsoft 7.4 billion. So 10.3 billion is not beyond the extraordinary by no stretch of the imagination at all. Now, let's get back to the strategy here. The share issuance plan is a revolutionary shift in capital market strategies. I saw what was going on pretty fast, but never in my wildest dreams, even a couple of months ago, did I expect them to go so fast. This, if they can pull it off, this will completely change the game. There's so much to cover still. This is just probably the most exciting story I've ever said. And by the way, I will open up to Q&A after because a lot of people have a lot of questions. So hang tight. I'm going to go through a whole bunch of numbers. Then I'm going to go through a conclusion. Then I'm going to answer your questions. So wait for that. First of all, game theory and Bitcoin. Absolutely crazy. And I studied game theory at Wharton, Prisoner's Dilemma, etc. And it fascinated me. It was the only thing that I found truly challenging in school. But basically, acting early in the Bitcoin market allows investors to secure assets before price rises, maximizing returns. Get in early, get in hard, as I always say. Scarcity versus infinite money. Yes, 5 million lost, 20 million. This is the game theory from hell dilemma playing out before our very eyes. Never again in the history of the world will you see this. And then the psychology. Saylor is influencing big purchases from Marathon and CleanSpark and all these Hut 8 and all these other players, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of demand and price increase. The big question is, what happens next? All right. Now, the great thing about Saylor is he said he will never sell. He will always buy the top. He's very transparent, very honest, been around for a long time. And he said two things that are very profound to this story. Number one, when you understand it, i.e. Bitcoin, once you get Bitcoin and it clicks in your mind, your immediate reaction is, I got to hurry and buy as much as I can because someone else is going to take all my Bitcoin away from me. Okay, verbatim, or hurry, get it before somebody else gets it. But then, this one was very profound. I said this about a week ago on the impact theory. The first nation to print their own currency to buy Bitcoin wins, okay? What is Saylor actually doing? He is becoming unto himself a nation. He is printing his own fiat, which is his ATM stock, to buy, guess what? Bitcoin. So literally, his market cap is bigger than the GDP of many nations. So Michael Saylor, shout out to friend of the channel, Michael, is his own nation, and he is printing fiat using the ATM to buy Bitcoin. All right. Now, we're going to get into game theory in a second because it's too important. Let's go. First of all, impact of Bitcoin purchase. Spell out again. The more demand, the more it purchases, attracts more investors. Now he's part of the QQQ. It's indexed. They have to buy more shares, and that will just drive prices higher. Price appreciation. As the price appreciates, he got in early. He nearly has $500,000 Bitcoin bag. This limited supply, coupled with increased demand, leads to significant price appreciation. He knows this. It's a game of time. And then the market confidence, public support, and large-scale buying from other players like the ETFs, other institutions, pension funds will jump in as well. And the feedback loop happens. More and more people pile in. Higher prices attract even more buyers, solidifying Bitcoin's position as a desirable asset. It's that simple. The question is, it sounds like, is there any risk? Yeah, there is. So what happens? The trillion-dollar question here is, what happens if nobody else follows him? He's the guy owning all the Bitcoin. Nobody else wants it. Is that going to happen? I think that's highly unlikely because others will follow. Others are already following. We have over 60 large core public companies that are having Bitcoin as a treasury right now. So it's happening. Nation states are mining. Sovereigns are buying. It's happening behind the scenes. The price may not reflect that right now. By the way, Microstrategy is up $3 in after hours, so it's not turned off by this news at all, by no stretch. Now, I'm going to walk through game theory. It's very, very hard to wrap your head around. This is a prisoner's dilemma. It's one of my favorite stories from school 25 years ago. But this is basically spelling it out real simply. What happens if a nation state, which could also be MicroStrategy, decides to buy or not buy or do whatever? So first of all, if you imagine a situation where China adopts the Bitcoin standard, the outcome, and the US adopts the Bitcoin standard, both countries manage their debt burden and successfully and compete on equal footing, the scenario is beneficial for both countries and Bitcoin. Then you have China not adopting the Bitcoin standard. That's clearly not the case right now because of what we've seen. Outcome, United States gains an advantage, taking capital and entrepreneurs from China, establishing dominance over China, both fiscally and with a military perspective. Bitcoin benefits still. The United States does not adopt the Bitcoin standard, but China does. China gains the upper hand, taking capital and entrepreneurs from the United States and establishes military dominance over the United States. Bitcoin still benefits. And then the final situation, China does not adopt a Bitcoin standard, and both countries fail to manage their debt, leading to a collapse. Bitcoin still wins. Presumably, it remains a viable alternative to other countries with failing traditional financial systems. In summary, adopting the Bitcoin standard is the strategic advantage for nation states and treasuries and institutions and pension funds because Bitcoin always comes out on top regardless of the choices made by different countries. This is the prisoner's dilemma. Research it. So important to understand. But there's more. Let's get into some numbers. First of all, shout out to Fred, friend of the channel. Fred is a student of history. Great fortunes of this world were made making massive and innovative financial bets. This is very true. I can testify to that myself. Rockefeller consolidated the oil industry in 1872 with the Cleveland Massacre, buying his competitors with stock in Standard Oil and deferred payment plans. You see, using stock, using ATM to buy the competitors. And within 13 years, he had 90% of the entire industry. Carnegie consolidated steel empire vertically in the 1880s, aggressively buying coal fields, or iron ore mines, and railroads until he has 7% of the steel market. Bezos raised $1.52 billion in Feb 1999. That was right before the big dot-com bust, by the way. I remember it well. In a massive convertible note. Altogether, the company had raised $30 billion, mainly in bonds, to fund his complete domination of e-commerce. Bezos got it. Now we have Michael Saylor. What's he up to? Well, he's making a similar massive bet. It may sound crazy and dilutive, but there is no execution risk. If he gets the funding, the price of Bitcoin will go up. and TradFi will jump on board and the indexes have to buy. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, ladies and gentlemen. It's that simple. And by the way, if you got in early, each share you have gets more and more Bitcoin every single time they buy Bitcoin. Okay? Very important to remember. It doesn't go down. It keeps going up, as can be proven here in this chart. Most of the time it goes up, of course, especially of late in the year 2024. When I first started buying Microstrategy, I was only getting 22,000 sats per share. Now I get 153,000 sats per share. Very interesting how that develops. Now, let's get back to some numbers. Imagine, very simply put, I take my IA multiplier of 21 and I assume different scenarios. Okay, we went through the very beginning. Let me refresh your minds on this initial table here. I took slices of 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, and 50%. I didn't go beyond that because the numbers get too wonky, too crazy. So we'll keep it conservative and we'll sandbag like we like to sandbag here on the channel. But again, this is the structure. They basically will have a whole bunch of new shares, nearly 10 billion of them. And I assume the share price is the same, $336. And that allows them to theoretically raise $3.35 trillion. So what does that mean in terms of actual buying power? So imagine they do a 10% share issue of that 10 billion shares. Okay. They will raise $335 billion. Multiply that by 21. The impact on the Bitcoin market cap is adding an additional $7 trillion. The impact on the price per Bitcoin is $469,000. With the current price today, that takes us to a future price of about $659,000, give or take a little bit. So that's a big return on investment. And the average Bitcoin buy price of Michael Saylor is $329,500. Okay. And the amount of Bitcoin that they buy with this ATM of just 10% is 1.016 million Bitcoin. I hope you're tracking me here. It's a lot. But I'm going to do it again and then again 3 times. Imagine 20%. So as they do more in slices and tranches, they'll be able to buy less Bitcoin because the price will be a lot higher. But the share price will also be higher because the price of Bitcoin's a lot higher. But they won't get as much Bitcoin. So 20% issuance here. Impact on the market cap of Bitcoin is 14 trillion for that whole 20%, which is 670 billion. That would take the average price of Bitcoin to between 1.033 million and 1.128 million, depending on a few different factors. Okay, the average price that they buy Bitcoin at would be 564,000. And they'll be able to add about 593,000 Bitcoin with that second tranche. That tranche goes from 10% to 20%. So we're doing 10% increments. And then blowing it all up together, if they just get to half of that issuance, that means of the 3.35 trillion, they only issue 1.675 trillion over these 5 tranches. Of course, these tranches will be smaller. They'll probably be $1 billion increments, maybe $1.5 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion, who knows. But that will take, if we go to 50%, that will take the price of Bitcoin somewhere to about between $2.44 million and $2.535 million of Bitcoin. The Bitcoin average price that Saylor will spend will be 1.2675 million. For the last tranche of 10%, they'll only be able to buy 264,300 Bitcoin. But the total MicroStrategy bag, this is the most important thing, the green column on the right, the total MicroStrategy bag after these 5 tranches, only half of the share issuance, assuming Bitcoin price goes up and the share price goes up, will be 3.068 million Bitcoin. Remember, there's only 15. Michael Saylor will have 20% of all Bitcoin on the planet. Crazy? It's numbers. The numbers don't lie if he pulls it off. We'll wait for the conclusion at the end. I'll do some questions too. But this is the power of index funds too. Shout out to Discord. I saw this little graphic there. I thought it was quite compelling. It's like what I always talk about, black holes sucking everything in. the power of index funds. The winners take most. They get them, like Apple stock is purchased because of index funds, because of the S&P 500, because of the QQQ, not because of their iPhone number 27. Okay? MicroStrategy has the power to do this too. They will get the lion's share of the money if they can pull this story off and build a bag of 3 million Bitcoin. They're nearly 500,000 already. Can they 6x their bag? With the math of their ATM and the number of shares, it's theoretically feasible. Again, this is not financial advice. This is mathematics. That's all. Let's talk about the conclusion, because there's going to be a lot of questions. And what I honestly think about this. Will this happen? My answer is probably. Will others follow? The answer is also probably. They're already following. This is also not a request to dilute this many shares. They may spend years doing it, okay? Or at the rate at which they're going, it could happen in the next 2 or 3 years. We don't know. We don't know how fast. But it doesn't mean they're going to dilute a billion shares. They can't. The market can't digest that much. It has to be staggered and done very methodically using algorithms, etc. Now, the most important question for me, can I afford not to own MicroStrategy? Probably not, because if they pull this off, okay, you have a leveraged call option on the future of Bitcoin, which means MicroStrategy shares go up at an accelerated pace. So the answer is probably not. Would this news make me want to sell MicroStrategy? No, it actually makes me more bullish. Final question, can Saylor pull this off? Well, I just went through the math. The math is on his side. Again, no matter how much the price is, the supply is finite. It doesn't go up, and it's ever decreasing over time. All right. The other interesting question I asked myself is, could there be another bear market? Not with this type of buying. No, absolutely not. Let's look at these numbers one more time. The amount of Bitcoin to be purchased by this fellow doing this type of thing is completely insane. 3 million Bitcoin. There probably isn't even that much available for sale, like we discussed earlier. It's going to be very hard to fill that bag. So I'm going to do some questions. All these videos turned into podcasts and everything else. Don't forget, if you want to amplify your intelligence, subscribe. But let's talk about this and these numbers. I'll take a couple of questions from the audience. If anybody has any questions, or if everything was perfectly clear, then I can go drink some coconut water. Let me see. Saylor Giga Gangster. It is. He identified the infinite money glitch. Larry Fink says possibly not finite. Yeah, that's all a FUD story. Larry makes money on holding these assets. Do ignore the FUD. MicroStrategy tanked bad today. So did Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's recovering, and so is MicroStrategy. Bitcoin is over 94,000 right now. It was as low as 92, I think, earlier in the day. Let me see. Any good questions here? Abrasive Justin. I see people saying they expect a short-term price dump. Why do you think they are saying this? The market's very bearish now. People are used to number go up for the last year or so. It's funny when Bitcoin goes down a little bit, people lose their minds and they think it's the end. But we'll see. Won't this plummet per share Bitcoin yield? It depends. Again, as long as they keep issuing shares at a NAV premium above 1, if you own a share, you're going to get more Bitcoin over time. I made a very detailed video on that as well a week or so ago. So no, you'll keep getting more. Maybe not at this accelerated pace like this, but you will be getting more. So we'll see. And again, sometimes MicroStrategy is the only on-ramp for many people. So we'll see. MicroStrategy price potential. So I was building a Monte Carlo model and I ran out of time. It's really complex. I was taking the average buy price of Bitcoin. Every time they did $1 billion ATM, calculated the impact on the market cap of Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin, calculated the average price that MicroStrategy would pay per tranche, and then calculated the number of shares that need to be issued to buy that tranche, and then added them to the outstanding shares, and it got too complex. And I wasn't confident in the math. I do have the model. I haven't shared it yet because I want to double check the math because it's late. And on Sunday's video, I dropped a 0 in a calculation. So again, just dropping a 0 can be a little bit of a game changer. Is he doing this now so the QQQ holders can vote against this? I don't think so. The QQQ wants alpha. This is the alpha. QQQ wants to attract dollars. Remember, follow the money. It's not hard. What does QQQ want? They want to make commissions on big bags. The higher the return of the QQQ, the more people invest in it. It's that simple. Don't overthink this stuff. Huge nation state FOMO. I mean, as I just illustrated here, Saylor is a nation state. He is a nation state. His market cap is bigger than GDP of like 125, 130 countries. So yeah, we'll see. Can MicroStrategy buy too much to make the market liquid? That is one of the concerns. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. Like if you were looking to buy 3 million Bitcoin today, you will not be able to buy 3 million Bitcoin today. It would take a long time to fill that position. How much Bitcoin do I need right now to be a millionaire? Well, to be safe, by 2030, have 1.2 Bitcoin. That'll make you a millionaire. How does the dilution not drive the stock price down? So the stock price is a function of the size of their Bitcoin bag. Okay, they issue shares at. So imagine they're issuing shares at $2, and they're using that $2 to buy Bitcoin. But the actual amount that they are paying for it in Bitcoin terms is half because of the premium. That's all you have to think about. That's how it's accretive to the shareholders. And that's what Michael Saylor does. And Michael Saylor, by the way, is on the side of the shareholders. He's not a traditional TradFi person who is on the side of their own bags. A dollar bill. I own a lot of MicroStrategy, but I wonder what Satoshi would think of this. Brilliant question. I actually, while I was doing this, putting this presentation together, I was asking myself the same thing. What would Satoshi think? Does Satoshi want one player to have all the Bitcoin? No, he wants it widely dispersed. But you got to understand as well, the corollary to that, though, is who owns MicroStrategy? The answer is many, many shareholders. And in fact, anybody who's followed me for the last 4 years owns MicroStrategy. So it's probably 10,000 people at least. So we'll see. Maybe a lot more. Could BlackRock be controlling MicroStrategy in the back to control more Bitcoin? No. They have enough anyway. Welcome in to Spread the Love. Thank you, American Beijinger. When can we expect to hear if the SEC approves of this or not? They can't say no, theoretically, okay? Because there's precedent for this, okay? Issuing shares, I mean, it's up to the shareholders to decide if they want to dump it or hold it or buy more. Again, and MicroStrategy knows it. It's not like they're going to dump 10 billion shares tomorrow. It'll be gradual, like always. Let me see. Yeah, this. People were losing a bit of confidence today, but it's one of those things. The MicroStrategy deal is as follows. You might buy at a certain point in time, like 3 months ago, and the price may dip. But over time, with the activity that they're doing, it's going to force the price of Bitcoin to go up. Only 450 Bitcoin are issued a day, and Michael Saylor has already bought 250,000 this year so far. Okay, so he's bought a year and a half supply in 10 or 11 months. That's all you need to know. And it's only one player. There's many more players as well. This is unbelievable. Yeah, it's really tricky math. I got 10,000 people watching this at 9 o'clock at night where I am. Thank you all for coming. Hit the like. Get the message out there. This is. I've been in markets for 35 years. Started in capital markets 35 years ago. In the year, actually, it's going to be nearly 36 years. My first job in capital markets began in the year 1989. Hard to believe. Anyway, Mantra Media. What happens when MicroStrategy price is well below the convert bond price and the bondholders want to cash out? They can't really cash out till the end of their term. they can't draw. So they're going to be fine. And what Michael Saylor will do whenever those bonds come close, they typically will find the perfect time to pay them off and reissue new bonds. So that's kind of what Marathon have done. They did convertible debt, and they paid off their old debt and then issued new debt. So that's what'll happen. And I know this is crazy. From Peter van der Vaart. What is the better proxy to buy right now? MicroStrategy, Saylor, or MetaPlanet? I have a model for that. On Patreon, I shared I call the HODL model. That's the new name for it. It has all the top proxies and their NAV premium ratio. Right now, the cheapest one is Marathon. And the number 2 is MicroStrategy at 2.02. Marathon's about 1.56 right now. So that's it. Saylor is over 3. MetaPlanet as well. I'll share that later. Over 1,000 likes. Thank you so much, Beishinger. That's a ton of, yeah. It's like, I didn't think anybody would be around, and I thought it was just me talking to myself. Anyhow, but it shows you how exposed retail investors are to this puppy. And I did mention earlier, 10,000 people probably own MicroStrategy because of me. Probably a lot more. Yeah, let me see. Would you rotate some MicroStrategy into Tesla? Not at this price. No. Tesla's too high. MicroStrategy is too low. I believe MicroStrategy is undervalued for where it is right now. But both are winners. If you can do it tax-free, play. If you got taxes, be careful because they'll eat you alive. Aussies in the house. Happy Christmas over here. Happy Christmas, Aussies. Fun story. I spent Christmas once on Bondi Beach. It was fantastic. Imagine having Christmas with people with Santa hats in the sun, in the heat. It was a new experience for me, being a Northern Hemisphere person. I see James pop on, and Monster stay up. Yes, thank you for coming. MicroStrategy or IBIT or Bitcoin? It's up to you. MicroStrategy is riskier, but it gets more performance over time. So it's crazy. We got Finland in the house as well. Almost midnight here. Who can sleep these days? I can sleep. I'm too tired not to sleep. I'm in AZ and seeing that today. Yes, Bondi Beach in Australia. Surf in Santas. Okay, I'll take 2 more questions and I'm going to go. MSTX, crazy or great idea? I stay away from those leverage funds because there's a chop. You'll lose in the transition. There's a compounding effect. I just be careful with those things. How long has this alpha been on? I've been talking now for 35 minutes. Merry Christmas, everybody. Denmark, hello. My son is in Copenhagen. So, small world. Complex vector calculus. The rate of everything is fluctuating all the time, everywhere. Laser focus, yes. And we live in exponential times. Again, when Saylor came out with the 42 billion ATM, the 21 convertible and 21 billion ATM, I was like, that's nuts. What he came out with today it makes that look like nothing. Okay, so it's just crazy. And we'll see. Even if he's the only buyer of Bitcoin, literally, and he pulls this thing off, there is no bear market. There is no bear market because there's a constant bid on Bitcoin. Caligula, get some rest. It's a long day, but it's an exciting day. Who can sleep during this time? Hello from Thailand. We've got people all over the world. I love that. A lot of Louisiana, Thailand, Denmark, Australia. We got Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, PA, and everywhere. Happy holidays, everybody. I hope this demystified some of the craziness. Over 10,000 people watching this bonkers. This is a crazy time to be alive. Michael Saylor is doing something that has never been done before. But the math checks out, as we just discovered. Thanks all for coming. See you all tomorrow for Okta. Have a good night. Bye-bye.